Hello students, I'm Kassu and I'm making this video for freshman students and for Introduction to Economics course. Introduction to Economics has a total of 6 chapters. The first chapter will discuss on basic economic issues. The second chapter will discuss mainly on demand and supply. The third chapter will discuss on the consumer's preference, utility, and so on. Chapter 4 will discuss on production and cost, and chapter 5 will be about market structure, and chapter 6 will be the different macroeconomic issues. So now we can say from chapter 1, majorly from chapter 1 to chapter 5, major issues are just micro issues, particularly from chapter 2 to chapter 5. Then the chapter 6 is the macro part. Now today I'm just discussing the first part of the chapter 1. Chapter 1 is basically basic introduction of different ideas in economics, especially for those who are starting economics, who are just learning economics. So let's start from definition of economics. Science of economics in its current form is about 200 years old. And it was just after Adam Smith wrote a book called Wealth of Nation that economics started as a distinct science. Of course, many other people have written different ideas regarding economics in their writings. But it was after Adam Smith that economics just has been started as a distinct. Now, Adam Smith has written this book called An Inquiry into the Nature and Causes of the Wealth of Nation in 1776. So this is the photo that we have of the. And of course, regarding the Ethiopian contributors, of course, we can have, of course, regarding the contributors of economic science, we have many other people around the world. But regarding the Ethiopian case, we can mention Nagadras ገብረሕይወት Baikadany, who wrote መንግስትና የህዝብ አስተዳደር in around 1924. Okay. Let's go to the definition of economics. There is no universally accepted definition of economics because different people, different economists define economics from different point of views. So some people define from wealth point of view, others define it from welfare point of view, still others define it from scarcity point of view and from growth point of view. Its definition varies as nature and scope of the subject grows over time. Now, even if we don't have a generally accepted definition, but we define just from the scarcity point of view. So we define as economics is a social science which studies about efficient allocation of scarce resources so as to attain maximum fulfillment of unlimited human wants. So the first thing is that economics is a social science because it studies about human behavior. It does not study about natural science, something like that. So it just studies about the behavior, the economic behavior of the people or just individuals and so on. So it means it is a social science. Secondly, it studies about efficient allocation of resources. It studies about resources that are scarce resources. It does, of course, we shall see later on, we shall classify resources into two, as scarce and free resources. Now, economics studies about scarce resources. It does not study about the free resources, because we don't want to study those free resources because it's not important to do so. But we just study those scarce resources and about efficient allocation of those scarce resources. And our basic objective is just to attain the maximum fulfillment of unlimited human needs. So on one hand, human needs and wants are unlimited, and resources are just scarce. So we have to allocate those resources in a way that can fulfill the human needs and wants. So now it studies how people choose to use scarce resources like land, labor, equipment, and so on to produce various goods and services, and to provide and to distribute those. Now, from the definition, you can derive the following. One thing we said, economic studies about the scarce resources. It does not study about free resources. Secondly, it studies about allocation of those resources. And of course, that allocation should be efficient. And we just said human needs are unlimited. So the basic ideas, the basic fundamental factors that we have regarding for the foundation of economics are just two. I already said them. One is that human material wants are unlimited. On the other hand, economic resources are limited. But that limitedness is just related to the that limitedness is related to the human needs and wants. Then if we have those problems, if we have scarcity, then we have choice. Scarcity and choice are basic economic problems, and choice is at the heart of all decision making. So just different choices are encountered at individual level, at family level, at national level, and so on. So we have, and the rationale of studying economics is already discussed, that the being resources scarce and being human needs are unlimited. Then economists evaluate outcomes of decisions in terms of different criteria like efficiency, equity, stability. Because one economic decision may be efficient but may not be equitable, and may not be stable for just future generation and so on. So those criteria are they are evaluated in holistic way. And economists search for alternative forms of economic organization that might produce higher living standards or more desirable distribution of material well-being. Okay, then regarding the scope of economics, after Adam Smith wrote the book Wealth of Nation, it has expanded a lot, and field and scope of economics is expanding rapidly, and it has come to include a vast range of topics and issues. For example, now currently we have different branches of economics like development economics, industrial economics, transport economics, welfare economics, environmental economics, health economics, and so on. So you can see that those branches uh, just are just the new uh, branches of economics, and it is rapidly changing. But for the purpose of the study, we economics into microeconomics and macroeconomics. Microeconomics is concerned with economic behavior of individual decision-making units. Basically, we have two economic decision-making units. There's a household and firms. In a free market economy, households and firms are just the decision-making units. So their behavior, their interaction, and so on is just studied under microeconomics. And markets where those firms and households interact are also studied under microeconomics. And even industries are studied under microeconomics. Industries are just a system that produce the same or similar products or provide similar services. So they are studied under microeconomics. On the other hand, macroeconomics deals with it deals with effects and consequences of aggregate behavior of all decision-making units. So it is somehow aggregative. And it examines interrelations among various aggregates, their determination and causes of fluctuation. Let's see the detailed differences between microeconomics and macroeconomics. Okay, microeconomics studies individual economic units of an economy. As I said, it studies about individual economic units, that is households and firms. Of course, why just their interaction in the markets and industries too. But macroeconomics studies an economy as a whole, and it is aggregates. It does not study the firm alone. It does not study about the households alone and so on. It studies the economy as a whole. And microeconomics deals with individual income, individual prices, individual output, and so on. While macroeconomics deals with national income, national output, and general price level. And microeconomics, the central problem in microeconomics is price determination and allocation of resources. We have price determination, we have supply, we have demand, then because of supply and demand, price is just determined. The price of a product, the price of a factor, and so on is just determined by demand and supply, and that is studied under microeconomics. And it also studies about the allocation of resources. Allocation of resources is studied under microeconomics, while macroeconomics, its central problem is determination of level of income and employment. It is a central problem is determination of level of income. What is the income of the country and how it reaches there, and so on. And employment, what is the level of employment of factors of production? When we say employment, we are just considering about factors of production. We shall later on look at what those factors of production are. But for the time being, we have I can highlight you those factors of production are labor, capital, and land and entrepreneurship. So those factors of production need to be employed at efficient way. So nationally or just at economy-wide, macroeconomics want to study that. Okay, then the main tools of analysis in microeconomics are demand and supply of particular commodities and factors of production. So there is demand, there is supply of a particular commodity, or maybe commodities under industries or just specific markets. And the demand and supply of factors too. Factors of production. When I say factors of production, as I said, I'm meaning inputs or the means of production. So the demand and supply of those means of production, labor, capital, whatever, are just studied under microeconomics. But when you come to macroeconomics, its main tools are aggregate demand and aggregate supply of an economy as a whole. So aggregate demand, aggregate supply, not a demand and supply for a particular commodity or factor. It is about the aggregate demand and aggregate supply. So the tool of analysis. Microeconomics helps to solve the central problems of what, how, and for whom to produce in an economy so as to maximize profits. So those decisions, of course, uh, later on we shall be looking those questions as a policy issues, but for the time being, those decisions are just taken as the decisions of individuals, particularly those are the decisions of consumers and producers. So those questions, central questions, are just solved through microeconomics, because the decisions of what to produce, how to produce, and for whom to produce are just solved by profit motives. So people produce that helps them get the highest profit. So they are just solved through uh, the individual decision, as consequently they are studied under microeconomics. But when you come to macroeconomics, uh, it helps to solve the central problem of full employment of resources in the economy. Resources, we mean labor, land, capital, and so on. So the macroeconomics want to solve the central problem of employment of those resources. And microeconomic discusses how equilibrium of consumer, equilibrium of producer, or equilibrium of industry is attained. So regarding consumption, when we say equilibrium of consumers, so what is the amount or what is the level of consumption goods and service about, and what makes that equilibrium happen. When we say the equilibrium of the producer, what is the amount of output that is a single firm or a group of firms maybe produce at a given market, and what makes that happen. When I say industry, of course, I defined earlier industry as a system that produces a collection of firms, or a system that produces similarly the same goods or services. So what is the equilibrium in that industry, and what happens, what are the causes to happen that equilibrium, and so on, is studied under microeconomics. But when you come to the macroeconomics, it's concerned with equilibrium determination of level of income and level of employment at aggregate level. So there are variables that are studied under microeconomics and macroeconomics. For example, under microeconomics, individual income, individual savings, individual prices, firm's output, individual consumption. So you can see that the terminology like individual, firms, consumers, and so on. So the terminology just indicates you that those are studied under microeconomics. And when you come to the macroeconomics, there are variables like national income, right? National savings, general price levels, national output, aggregate consumption, and so on. So those values are somehow aggregative. So the terminologies can also lead as the in which branch are those variables. Okay, then the other thing that we are going to discuss is about positive and normative analysis. Positive analysis of positive economics is concerned with analysis of factors and attempts to describe the world as it is. So it tries to answer questions as what was, what is or what will be in the future. So it does not judge a system as good or bad. It does it does not judge it as better or worse. So for example, if somebody says the current inflation rate in Ethiopia is 12%, poverty and unemployment are the biggest problems in Ethiopia and so on. Those are just uh, I can say they are ready to be said yes or no, because it's a matter of fact, right? It's a matter of fact. Those statements are ready to be said yes or no. They are yes or no statements. So if any disagreement on those positive economics is arised, then the solution is just to check those factors. Checking the factors. You just go the factors, uh, and for example, if there is a disagreement on the statement that the current inflation rate in Ethiopia is 12%, then I go to the central statistics. If disagreement is happening between two individuals, then what they do is that they go to the central statistics or central bank, national bank, or some other place uh, where the data is. Then they just check whether it is 12% or not. So they will solve by looking at those factors. So checking those. But when we come to normative economics, it deals with questions like what ought to be, what should be, so what must be, and so on. It evaluates desirability of alternative outcomes based on one's value judgment. So there is a value judgment. We say this option is good or this option is bad, and so on. So that means we judge. We just put our own judgments. Uh, what is good for one person may not be good for the other, right? I think it is clear. What is good for me may not be necessarily good for the other people. So it depends on the personal arguments and so on. For example, if I say the poor should pay no taxes, and if I say there is a need for intervention of government intervention in the economy and so on, those are just they are not ready to be said yes or no, right? If I say the poor should pay no taxes, and if other person says that the poor should pay taxes, then that disagreement cannot be solved by looking into factors, because there is no fact here. There is no fact. Rather, we are arguing. We are arguing about the issue. So if any disagreement occurs, then we just solve those disagreements just by voting. And many the point that I want to make here is that many political parties or individuals who run for parliament or so on just have ideas of those normative analysis. The normal, uh, this has to be and this has not to be, and so on. Just they raise those ideas. They don't just propose different positive analysis, because positive analysis, it can be simply checked by looking at factors, but they have what? Normative analysis. They just bring those alternatives just before the public, then the public vote. And usually uh, in democratic countries, it is their ideas, their options, or their proposals, their normative statements that is just uh, ready to be voting. So if any, the point is, if any disagreement is occurred on normative analysis, it is solved through voting. Very nice. So the other point that we are going to discuss in this session is inductive and deductive reasoning. Fundamental objective of economic studies is establishment of a valid generalization, right? A valid general. We want to establish a valid generalization about some human behavior, especially when I define economics, we said uh, it is a human, it's a social science because it studies about human behavior, human economic behavior. So now we want to make some generalization about different behavior of human beings, particularly for our case, economic behaviors. Now, those generalizations are known as theories. Theories are a simplified picture of a reality. Just they show the reality in a simplified way because the reality or the world is very complex. The relationship between different behaviors of economics, between nature and the human behavior and so on, that is very complex. It is difficult to understand. So we just what we want to simplify in those theories and models. So economic theory provides the basis for economic analysis, which uses logical reasonings, and those logical reasonings are inductive and deductive. Let's start from inductive reasoning. Inductive reasoning is a logical method of reaching at some correct general statement, or that general statement may be a theory uh, or something like that, based on several independent and specific correct statements. So it is a process of driving a principle or a theory or or it may be uh, something like that, truth, by moving from factors to theories and from particular to general economic analysis. So let me give an example. For example, the theories that we are going to discuss in chapter 2, one of the theories is demand theory. For example, we have currently we have law of demand saying there is inverse relationship between price and quantity demanded. That means when prices increase, the demanded quantities will decline. So that is a theory. But now, if we don't have, if we don't have that theory, if we don't have that theory, what we do is we just go to the individuals to check what happens on their demand when price increases. So that just we check for individuals. For example, if you want to conclude about the 100 and plus million people of Ethiopia, their consumption, then we may have 10,000, 1,000 or so on representative data. We just uh, collect data by questionnaire or something like that about that economic variables relationships. Then from that data, we conclude for the general public, right? For the general public. That is the analysis, that is the reasoning from uh, just from specific to general, from specific to general. So inductive method involves the following steps. First, we select the problem. The problem is an issue that we want to deal with. So like I said, it may be the issue may be knowing the relationship between price and quantity demanded, or it may be the relationship between the income of a family and the education performance of the students, or so on, and many variables. Relationship between variables can be raised. The thing is, we just select the problem, the issue. Then after we select the problem, we just collect the data, real data, by questionnaire, just preparing questionnaire, or by interviews, or many other methodology. So we collect the data, we classify them, and we analyze. just based on our analysis, we just establish a cause and effect relationship between economic phenomena. For example, like I said, I collect data about the human behavior on quantity demanded when prices increase. Then I have, from the data, I got this relationship. I can say when prices increase, quantity demanded decline. So there is inverse relationship, I can say. So that is the establishment of cause and effect relationship. So that, but we also have deductive reasoning. Deductive reasoning is a logical way of arriving at particular or just specific correct statements just by starting from general statement, general correct statement. So in this case, we have one general statement that is supposed to be true or correct. Then we want to uh, just prove that for individuals, for specifics. It deals with conclusions about economic phenomena from certain phenomena as fundamental assumptions or truths or axioms through process of logical arguments. Just we start from the assumptions, maybe from truths or axioms. So the theory may agree or it may disagree with real world data, and we should check that the validity of those theories. So in this case, what does it mean? In the previous example, to show the inductive reasoning, I raised the relationship between price and quantity demanded. Now, in this case, I may have the theory already. So I have the theory that says there's inverse relationship between price and quantity demanded. Okay, that is a theory that I have. Now, the point is, using deductive reasoning, I want to check this theory on the ground. Is really the fact show support this theory or not, will be just checked. So the steps are, first, like that of the inductive reasoning, we just identify the problem or the issue. Then we specify the assumptions. Assumptions are very important because they give us the preconditions for that analysis. So we specify the assumptions. After specifying the assumptions, we formulate the hypothesis. Hypothesis is just showing the relationship between those variables, but that hypothesis is not yet a theory. It has not be. It will be supported. I mean, it will be that is a theory or hypothesis, but it will be checked whether it works for real conditions or not. So after we formulate the hypothesis, because it will simplify our analysis. After we formulate the hypothesis, we test the validity of the hypothesis by just collecting data. Just we go for real data. I mean, it may not be a collection of data, but we check for specifics in the